Hello, everybody. Welcome to the GSA's first podcast. My name is Violet Barton. I am a PhD a candidate in the interdisciplinary humanities. Today is March 18th of 2022, and this is the first GSA podcast ever. We're here today with four amazing scholars who are the recipients of the Chancellor's Inclusive uh, Excellency Fellowship. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves. And before we do that, I just want to make sure we acknowledge that we are in Miwok in Yakut land, and we are honoring the people and the places, their amazing, generous gift to let us study, work, play, and live in their land. So thank you so much. I'm going to let you all introduce yourselves.
Okay, I can go first. My name is Aliana Fonsa. I am on the sociology PhD program, and this is my first year. I am originally from Cameroon, and before I joined UC Merced, I was a student at Penn State University, University Park campus.
Welcome, Aliana, and congratulations.
Thank you.
I can go next. My name is Tevin Williams. I'm in the Cognitive and Information Science PhD program. I'm originally from Raleigh, North Carolina, and I attended undergrad at Winston-Salem State University and then did a master's at UNC Charlotte.
Thank you, Tevin. Welcome.
Yeah, my name is Jared Brown. I'm in the sociology PhD program. Did undergrad at Merced College, CSU Stan with a bachelor's of psychology. I did a little bit of my master's at Sacramento State University before coming here.
Thank you, Jared. Welcome.
I'm Sabrina Rawson. I am in the interdisciplinary humanities program. This is my first year as PhD student. Previously, I achieved my master's at the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana, and I'm excited.
Thank you, Sabrina. Welcome and congratulations to you. I want to introduce and give an opportunity to introduce herself. I'm sorry, my colleague from GSA, Destina Bermejo.
Hi, I'm Destina. I'm a first year PhD student in the sociology department at UC Merced. And it's also my first year in the GSA organization. My position is I'm in charge of social media and graphic design. So I post all of the information related to GSA or to graduate students on our social media websites or pages.
Thank you, Destina, and I appreciate you're here. So first of all, big congrats to all of you for this amazing fellowship. It's a unique and very historical opportunity that we see at UC Merced. So we're proud of your accomplishments, and that's the reason why we want to highlight you first and foremost. We wanted to ask you, why did you join your field of study? What prompted you to be in your field?
Let me try that one. For me, it was previously, even in my master's program, the programs generally like to diversify the education with required courses. But what UC Merced had that was very unique was an eclectic, not only course subject topics, but it was unique in the fields of study. So you would have anthropology, psychology, sociology, and I didn't have to be a student in that field to take these courses. So this would allow me to broaden and intersect different concepts, theories, ideas, research that's being conducted internationally and nationally, and maybe some of them within my own communities, as well as working with instructors that have research that's interested. So it was very a positive experience to diversify my education.
Thank you, Sabrina.
I think for me, it's twofold. One has to do with my experience working before and my educational background. So it feels like it's a natural continuation of my work experience and my education. Before I joined UC Merced, I had a master's degree in Cameroon where I did history and specialized in history of international relations, trying to look at interactions between states and within states. And then I moved to Penn State where I did a master's degree program in labor and global workers' rights. And with that, there's a lot of mobilization, there's a lot of organization, there is a lot of activism. So studying sociology for me is like a natural continuation of those work experiences and my educational background. Social movements, which is what I'm specializing, I want to focus more on, and political sociology has to do a lot with, mobilization, has to do with looking at how people organize to articulate their issues and all of those. And that is what labor is all about. And looking at my work experience, before I actually went to work before I did my second master's at Penn State. And so at that time, I was working for a couple of organizations that work across Central and West Africa, over 20 something states in Africa, countries in Africa. So kind of like, organizing workers like journalists, mobilizing them to, help them articulate their concerns, fight for their rights and all of those. So I feel like, studying sociology is just a natural continuation of the foundation that my previous educational background has built and my experiences. And of course, I really look forward to, one thing I like about this program at UC Merced is the research focus of it. Like, I believe that there is one thing that I need to attain my career goals, to be able to do good and quality research. So I feel like this is the reason why this was an ideal field and program for me.
Wow, sounds really great. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Coming from my undergrad, I was interested in psychology and music and exploring kind of the relationship between those two. And that was my base interest. And then I used that going to my master's program to explore more cognitive psychology. And so exposure to that gave me new interest in interpersonal coordination and a little bit of language based on the advisor I was working with. And going from there, from a cognitive psychology exposed master's program, coming to this cognitive science PhD program, which is kind of a natural transition. And here I'm able to continue those interests in all of those three different areas and also gain exposure to like new tools and new techniques for just doing research in cognitive science, which is a naturally interdisciplinary field. And that's just kind of, I guess, where my focus has been, branching out from music cognition into other areas that I'm interested in.
Wow, that sounds really great. I'm just thinking about how yours and Ileana's and Sabrina's work can actually be so powerful. What about you, Jared?
Yeah, so I joined. So really, much like Ileana as well, my lived experience and whatnot, and my educational background. So growing up, I really didn't have like the best experience in education. I was expelled out of high school a couple of times, actually. I got expelled out of high school and expelled out of continuation school too, and which also led me to like down this path where I'm formally incarcerated back when I was 18. Right, I'm 33 now. So when I got to college after being released and whatnot, I really wanted to understand the structures of what's going on. Why are these groups suffering through certain conditions that other groups are not? So sociology really opened that up for me. And I just had like a love for science, particularly the social sciences, and the way that we could systematically address these questions of inequality. And so me personally, I like studying around the educational literature and social inequalities around that, particularly continuation high schools.
That's powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I feel like this is going to be an amazing cohort of fellows, the first one, but also you have so much to contribute. Thank you so much for doing that.
Appreciate that.
Christina.
Thank you, Violet. And thank you all for sharing too, your experiences and what led you to joining the fields that you're in. I wanted to ask you all why, your favorite thing about graduate school so far.
I'll kick it off. I ain't gonna lie, it's chill. You know, you hear all the horror stories about grad school and, you know, crazy department chairs and advisors. I think my department's pretty cool. Like, I get a lot of support. My cohort is dope, right? Ileana, you know, Justina's in my cohort. There's like 6 other people too, or maybe 5, and just everybody's cool and supportive. So it's like a whole entire different world, a world that I was like pushed out of, but I made myself into, and I'm actually accepted, right? You know, more often than not, people who come up marginalized and make it this far will talk about how they're really pushed out, right? And maybe that'd be the case if I landed somewhere else at a different school, but it's just not the case here. So I just really love the environment. It's real supportive.
Great.
All right, I think I'm in here just to continue with what Gerard has said, having this amazing cohort, you know, getting to know about their different research interests, very fascinating, learning a lot of things that probably if I had not been a graduate student, I wouldn't have understood some of these things. And there's just a lot about this program, about grad school that I like. Like I did mention before, I am really I'm very interested in research, and the research skills I'm being taught, I think it's something that is valued. I mean, I value it so much, and that's what really makes me like grad school. And of course, getting to, for me, I believe that for you to get to where you want to get to, you need to associate with people who are already there. I want to become a professor. That has been my dream. I want to become a consultant. I want to be working with the organizations I've worked before, maybe bring something in new to build and revitalize these organizations. I'm coming from Africa. There is a lot of work to do. I've worked with women empowerment organizations. I've worked with children empowerment organizations. There's just a lot of gaps that I feel like if I can, you know, further my education, you know, get in contact with professors like the amazing ones that we have, learn from them, then I am definitely going to go back there and impact these organizations better. So to me, grad school is an exciting experience.
Thank you, Liana.
I can go ahead. For me, it's right up with both, you know, just an extension of what Jared and Ileana was saying. My cohort this year in interdisciplinary humanities, 4 women. We are all women of color, and the significance was immediate. You know, I looked around and I'm like, is this it? This is so small. My master's program was just huge. There were like 60 to 100 students, depending on the course I was taking. It was insane. But I come in here, it's very inclusive. It's small. The relationships we are building has been very strong. We can text. It could be 11 o'clock at night. Hey, are you up? Yeah. Are you working on this? Yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So there's this relationship that we have fostered has been very dynamic and very inclusive. But in likewise, if I'm to flip the script, so have the instructors have been very personable. I can reach out to an instructor just by a referral, and I'm getting the same experience. So now as I'm coming to the end of the first year, I know that if my instructor or my advisor was to recommend to speak to someone, I know that it's going to be genuine conversation. It's going to be invaluable information, and it's going to be very supportive as well. So I'm feeling very, very like I can belong to some place. And that's something that I was missing out of my master's program, was this sense of belonging. I felt like I was just doing my thing, and graduate school must mean that I need to be, you know, solitary and work hard and I'll achieve this degree. But when I came to University of Merced, it was, I can do that. And at the same time, I can develop these relationships that are going to sustain me, both intellectually, critically, but also personally. And that's something I had missed. So it's been a very good experience.
That's so important, you know, the building relations and community. That's so key to grad school. What about you, Tevin?
I'd say for me, one of the things that's definitely stuck out about this program is just the exposure to intellectual kind of conversation on a weekly and almost daily basis. Within the CIS program, they have the Mind, Technology, and Society speaker series. And so each week they're bringing in researchers from around the country and even different parts of the world to come and present on their current research. In addition to that, we have a weekly brown bag in which other PhD students present their research or things that they're working on. And we can get feedback and toss around ideas, and it can be as formal as informal as the students choose to have it. And then also different labs that I'm in have different weekly presentations and journal discussions. So this is a little bit different than my previous grad program in terms of just the constant exposure on almost a daily basis to these types of discussions. So that's been pretty nice.
That's so great. That's exciting. Everything that you are saying, it's so important, having that intellectual stimulation, that community goals, a supportive environment, right? All of it is really important. And that's, for me, finishing my PhD, my last year, it gets lonely when you're writing. So keep in mind that community, because that will sustain you for sure. That will sustain you. What are, if any, are there any challenges that you have felt that you have had in the past or now that you feel comfortable sharing in terms of obstacles or, anything that has stood in the way of your education? And I can ask that question coming from my own experience, right, where I have been a survivor of war, and that kind of took my life in a different direction and ended all my dreams when I was a young person. But I still have the opportunity to come as an older woman and, get back to where I wanted to be. So asking you, what has been one of the greatest challenges that you have had in getting where you are?
I think the challenges in my life have been, how do I put it? Like, they have been in a way that when I look at myself today, when I'm proud of myself, and I'm thankful to the people that have given me the opportunity to be here today. At the level of the family, at the level of the country, my life has been so much drama. I'm proud to say this today because I hope that this podcast will get to somebody who maybe knows somebody, even if they are not impacted by what I'm going to say, or they have never had that experience. They might share it with somebody and it would encourage someone. I was born and bred in a very cultural or typical traditional setting in Africa. And I don't know if a lot of us have heard about child marriage. So it was a little bit common in some African societies and communities, and some parents, depending on which family you're born in. So at the age of about 13 to 14, I was nearly forced into child marriage. But it's quite a long story and a huge one. I can see it all here. I was forced somehow into it, but I stood my grounds. That's just all I'm going to say. And it ended up not working. So at that age, I kind of become very, very sensitive to issues affecting the girl child. So I became very proactive within the community level. I became very supportive. And, rejecting that as a child is not something people would just accept. This African thing of you respect your elders, you do what they say. If they say you have to go left, you have to go. So it was kind of like a big challenge. People just refused to give me the resources that I needed to go to school. So it was a long struggle for me. It was a difficult one for me to sail through, go to secondary school, go to high school, and then starting my university education. It's really a long road. And then again, I'm coming from a country where I belong to the marginalized or the minority and marginalized Anglophone group. Cameroon is a bilingual country with about 70% of the population being French speaking. And we have about a 30 to 40% Anglophone population. And so we kind of like, we know our names. If I hear the name of somebody who comes from an Anglophone region, I know. So we have these issues to deal with as Anglophones, and trying to get education and to get into some educational spheres. So sometimes just your name is going to get you rejected. Just your name is going to get you pushed out of certain spaces. And so I've had to fight all through my life. Even at the level of the university, I have to come together with other Anglophone students. We kind of like try to fight for our rights, try to make our voices heard. And believe me, it's never been an easy thing. Sometimes it will sound strange in places like America, but there's times when you just need to accept a score because you can't fight the person that is giving you the score or the grade that you have. So those are the kind of things that we've had to deal with. And it has been a long struggle. And then right now, as we all know, my country is in a civil war. There is a civil war ongoing in the English part of the country. And there is just a lot ongoing. My family is not safe. People I know, my community is not safe. So there's just a lot happening. I've lost a couple of really family members in this civil war, and it's still ongoing. So there's just a lot. And so I have to, I have to, take care of my education here, and at the same time, check on those that are back home. And because of that, there is a lot of internal displacement. You have a lot of Anglophone refugees all around neighboring African countries. Some of them I know, I need to check on them, I need to support them. And at this point in time, I kind of really have a challenge, so much divided attention, so much pressure on me. There's a lot of people that are looking up to me sometimes just to know that, okay, somebody thinks about them, that somebody really cares about them. Some of them have lost all parents, they've lost all family, but I know them. So I am kind of mentoring them. I'm kind of supporting them. So there's just a lot that is ongoing, but I'm very grateful that I am in the right place. I get all the support that I need from friends, from fellow cohorts, students on the cohort, and from the faculty.
Wow, Diana, I'm deeply honored to know about your struggles. That's a lot, but I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, I can chime in real brief. Can you rephrase the question again?
Yeah, what are some of the greatest struggles you may have faced that stood in the way of your education?
Oh yeah, well, early on, I mean, right now it's great. Life is great right now in this program for me. But early on, coming into college as a non-traditional student, whatever the hell that means, right? But coming in at 25, right, and already having 3 kids, and I'm from the streets, I'm from the ghetto, right, and I really reflect that, right? Just being able to navigate college, right, and speak their language and my language being shut down, right? Being who I am, my story, my reflection. So that was real hard coming up at first in college, because it's not an environment I came from, right? Nobody really talked about college where I was from, right? So that was like a real hard part, and just not seeing too many people that was like me, and the people that were like me, we stay in the shadows a bit. We don't really say where we're from. I'm barely, I went the whole entire time in college not even bringing up much of my past, right? But now I'm in this PhD program. I don't care anymore. I don't mind. I tell you I was formerly incarcerated, right? It's just whatever, right? I tell you I've been expelled out of school, right? I've been kicked out, right? It's really a reflection of the society more so than a reflection of me. Especially given where I'm at right now. So that was really a hard part, but and being denied a lot of stuff, looked over. I mean, I started out with a bachelor's with psychology. I want to go on, to get a PhD in psychology, but I had a pretty weird department I was at. But luckily I had a real good sociologist, Vincent Laus, over at CSU Stan, that was like, hey, why don't you come this way, right? You got the skills to do it, and we need people like you. So through all the adversity, there are ways of support, and I never want to be that story of if he could make it, you could make it. Nah, sometimes you could try as hard as you want and just not get anywhere, right? It's other stuff we need to change system wide, right? So those are some of the adversities kind of face. But as far as now, it's cool. It's, me and my kids, my wife, going through this program. I mean, hardest thing now is making sure I could write 3 15-page papers, right, for the end of the semester. So
Wow. Yeah, I agree with you, and I'm hearing your story and Liana's, this whole thing about that we call colonialism has really done a thing to all of our lives, right? So I appreciate you sharing your struggles and also the candid statements that you're making about how sometimes it's not enough to pull ourselves by bootstraps, like they say, right? There's a lot more that needs to happen. So thank you for sharing that.
I can go next. For me, I'd say difficulty in terms of just navigating this kind of academic, this hidden curriculum that might be common knowledge for some students, but it's not common knowledge for me. And even like growing up and going home, I would say I had a relatively decent home life, but it's these conversations that we'd have might not be the conversations that other students were having at their dinner table and discussing these high level or doing all these different kinds of reading and all this exposure. It's not really the types of things that I did. And so helping get through that was finding mentors who have had similar path. And for me at my undergrad institution, finding one mentor that I'm still in contact now and talking to him and offering his kind of view and the experiences that he's been through, and it has really helped me kind of navigated this hidden curriculum and trying to figure out the best course of action given what I'm used to and what I know and where I'd like to go. And so I think that's been some of the challenges that I've gone through and how I've tried to approach them.
Thank you.
Thank you all for sharing.
Oh, that's, yeah, I wanted to
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I just wanted to throw in there something because I experienced the same thing in each one of you, maybe a little different, but still there was family dynamics that were difficult as a child. I also had the same thing where your elders speak and they say jump, you say, okay, how high? And that was it. So I understand. And Liana and Jared, I totally get the neighborhood, man, because I was there, been there, done that. But Tevon, I think you're right. In my master's program, it was like that, the hidden curriculum. I was like, yeah, it exists, but it's not going to affect me because I'm focused and I'm just going to keep my head in my books and that's it. What's this year in the PhD program, first, let me go back a little bit. To apply to a PhD program was a spur of the moment thing. I had to convince my husband that I was going to be prepared because I told him, oh, I'm just going to go get a bachelor's degree. Oh, I'm just going to get a master's degree. And he just looked at me when I said PhD. He was like, what are you saying? And I had to tell him, no, I got this. It's not going to affect our relationship. Our marriage is strong. We got this. But he was still looking at me cross-eyed. He didn't say nothing while I gave this big old beautiful speech. Meanwhile, I'm trying to wrap up my first semester in my master's program because I'm the overachiever who did a master's degree in 1 year. So he's like, you just got this stuff where all you do is do homework. And now you're talking about doing how many more years? And so when I sent him the acceptance letter, they say, 5 to 7 years, you're funded, this and this. He goes, did you see how many years this is? And I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to get a PhD because I don't know what to say. Because if the tables were reversed, I'd be like, well, what are you doing? This is our retirement years. What are you talking about? Spending your retirement alone. And the universities I was applying was, 60 or plus miles away. Merced was the furthest away. And I wanted UC Merced. One, it was the community that was involved in. It was a lot of the refugee work, the STEM work that was going there was very interesting. I'm always looking at other podcasts or reading articles on what's going on in those different fields. I liked the small cohorts that were being entered within each program. But what ended up selling with my husband, because my first semester, I had to move by myself away from my family to be able to do that. And that was a very difficult thing for him. He's trusting me that this is what I'm doing. So in our whole marriage, this is decades of marriage. He's never had to feel that because, we're right here, we're committed to each other. But all of a sudden, I'm like, no, I got to go over here. He's like, you're going to get interested in other things because intellectually you're rising and I'm staying. And so there was this whole dynamic on how do I navigate my relationship, my familial relationship. None of our children, a couple of them attended college. We have 7 children, and a couple of them attended a little bit of college, mostly certificate work, but no one's actually gotten a degree. So I'm that example for my children as well. What they can accomplish now or later in life is still achievable. It's attainable. And so having this responsibility to maintain my relationship with my husband, maintain the relationships within my family has been that hidden curriculum, because I didn't know, no one I know has not only had a graduate degree, most in my family or in my friends, they don't have any college experience. Everybody back then out of the 80s were just going to work. You go to work, there you go. It was very materialistic, very capitalistic, and very quote, quote, American at the time. And so for me to do this is almost being un-American in my family. They look at me and they're like, what are you doing? Where are you going with this? How long are you going to be in school? You know, so it's very different. And coming from an immigrant family, coming from also a Black family, there's very few people that attended college. So I didn't have anybody to relate to. There's no conversations around the dinner table. There's no conversations within the elders. There is no one to have that conversations that I can discuss my work with, or to just help lay out ideas. So the one person who was worried, my husband, has been the one person who always reads my work. If I'm working on a research paper, he wants to read, what are you doing? What is it that you're talking about? He will ask me questions. He's my proofreader. God, don't need Grammarly. I've got my husband. So it's just, you know, there's ways that we have adapted our relationship, but it has been very stressful to navigate that by myself this time, for the first time by myself. It's been difficult for my children the most. I think the girls, I have 3 daughters and 2 sons. And I think the girls are the ones that are like calling me the most. I've got this going on. I mean, they're coming on 30, but I'm still getting these questions like, how do I get the kids to settle down, Mom? What did you do back then? I'm like, these are things you got to figure out. You got to figure it out. I can't help you. So it's been a testament for me to learn how to say no and navigate that. So family, friends, health, how stress affects my health, and to how to find that work-family balance has been something that's been difficult to navigate, but I'm learning.
Thank you so much, both of you. These are really important issues, right? Because being in the academy, there's a different language, different things that we learn that our families are not necessarily part of it. So the test for us is to stay authentic and to stay real and to not forget where we come from and who we are. Yeah, that's important. Thank you.
Yeah, and that just reminds me of one of the greatest challenges that I faced too. I'm the first person in my entire, African families can be huge, right? Like really big. And my father was like a traditional ruler, so he had 5 wives, and my mother was the last. But I'm the first person, we are tons of us, but I'm the very first person that ever went to university. So there is just a lot I had to deal with alone. I have nobody to mentor me, nobody to direct me. Sometimes I conceive ideas and there is nobody who understands me. Nobody who even knows what I'm talking about. I have like, women are meant to be, born, groomed, get married, and you are talking about education. So nobody was there for me. Like they are lucky now, lots of them within my family, they are lucky now. I'm pushing them, I'm mentoring them. They conceive good ideas, they conceive research ideas. They come, we talk about it, I give them direction, but I had nobody was there. I had to struggle to figure it out all by myself. What do I want to be? What do I need to study to get to where I want to be? And lots of those.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, it's huge, right? This is a huge thing. It's very positive, it's amazing, it's our dream, but there's a lot going on behind the scenes, right? I also have nobody to mentor me, but actually I'm not in grad school alone. My daughter is in grad school with me. So she's actually sometimes the person I go to for mentoring. She's ahead of me in technology. So I say, hey, what's going on? Help me here. But yeah, I understand the struggle. It's there. So I definitely appreciate your stories. And I think Christina was going to ask us the next question.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut anybody off from sharing their response to this question. But what I wanted to ask you all is if you have any advice for undergraduate students that are interested in graduate school. From what I could hear in the conversation, I feel like this is a good way to segue into this conversation as well.
Yeah, I think to what Tevin was talking about, right? That hidden curriculum, right? A lot of us aren't taught that. So it's more than just being like the outstanding student with the A's and whatnot. I guess that's very important too, because there's GPA requirements. But there's a lot of, I found it out late, like my junior, senior year, but there's a lot of research opportunities that you get up under your belt, internships, and talking with different professors and really understanding what grad school is about. So going beyond the grades and really doing the research, you can actually go to these universities that you want to apply to before you even get there. You probably do it your junior year, right? Actually talk with the department, see what they're about. So a lot of stuff that maybe a certain group of people are already privy to that a lot of us wouldn't know about. But those are my few tips. And fortunately for me, I had a couple mentors that told me that stuff because that wasn't available in my life, right? To know to do that. I thought if you just get the A's, now you go straight to grad school, right? And that's not reality.
I can add on to that as well, and agreeing with everything that Jared said. I think it also could be helpful to explore like your motivation for going to grad school and see if you can start doing things now that like align with that motivation. So if you're interested, if you want to go to grad school to do research, see if you can start getting exposure to that research now. And or opposite, if you're interested in grad school to go build on to go into industry or something, see if you can find the internships that give you a taste of what the industry feels like before you kind of jump in head first. And then also echoing what Jared said, finding a mentor who is doing the things that you're interested in or has had a similar experience to you. And I personally think that it's okay if your mentor might be on a little different path, but if they've had that similar experience to you, they can still offer very helpful advice in navigating this experience throughout grad school.
Yeah, I agree with all what you, Gerald and Tevin has said. I would just add that if you want to come to grad school and you feel like you need to have a break, that break should not be too long, because if it does, you're going to lose touch with a lot of things, and coming back feels like you're starting all over again. That has been my experience. I've been away out of school for close to like 8 years before I came back. It's not easy coming back when you go out, stay out there for a long, and you're not in touch with academia. And the second thing is, while you're out there, like they did mention mentorship, try to go close to somebody who is interested in the things you're interested in, and maybe some research theme you're interested in. Get close to those people, keep in touch with what is happening in that field. That way, when you come back to school or when you choose to start grad school, the transition is going to be smooth and easier.
I think the last thing is would be setting up good habits. So preparing yourself on planning. So time management is huge. Learning how to worship your planner was another one. And I do use the word worship because I write down everything in there. And making sure to look at that planner. It's one thing to write it down, it's another thing to practice using it. So using that, practicing your time management on a daily basis. Practice doing something, a little something every day towards scholarship, so towards your courses. And instead of waiting, 2 days before class before you start your readings and your homework, things like that. So practicing good habits is huge. Learning how to practice those habits with other classmates. So before you get into your cohort, it's a lot easier to work with it because you're all taking the same classes, you all have the same homework schedules and assignments. But as an undergraduate, you may not have that same experience. So still learning how to study in a group setting, how to be a team player with projects, and how to expand on your research as a group. So those are things to really work on. And then the last thing I would say is to utilize your writing center, utilizing tutors, because those are the people that are really going to help you improve your writing. When I started, even way transferred as a junior college to get my bachelor's degree, and I turned in my first paper, I remember my is one of my history teachers, and he gave me a poor grade, and I was like, what did I do wrong? And he says, your writing isn't your thoughts. If I wanted somebody to just give me you know, an annotated bibliography, I would do that. And I was like, what's an annotated bibliography? And he looked at me and he's like, didn't you just come from a college setting? And I says, yeah, but they didn't care about this stuff. I don't even know what you're talking about. And so there's a lot of disconnect between scholarship, between institutions, and between institutions within different states. So taking advantage of improving how to think and speak critically and how to put that on paper is a different way. So conveying thoughts and writing structures are important. So utilizing the writing center is something I would really suggest, because, you know, the lexicons are huge out here. You know, they're huge. And so, yeah.
Thank you all. That's all really, really important advice. Definitely, you know, it's so important that we all have a way to share with others, right? Because we're very privileged in the sense that we got into the academy, and there's so many others that haven't, and so I appreciate that you're sharing this information with others. And you know, given that we are here together in the midst of still a pandemic, right? There's a pandemic out there that is still ravaging lives. We're living in war. In California, we had the worst mega fires of history. We have a lot going on. There's inflation. There's, you know, all kinds of horrible discrimination still happening, right? So what does it mean for you all to get this opportunity to get the Inclusive Excellency Fellowship? What does it mean to you? How do you convert and translate that into your scholarship, right? And how do you make that, you know, how do you translate that scholarship, that research into action that will actually transform community and create change?
Well, let me try and do that one. We had to evacuate 3 times during the 5 fires that we've had up here in Northern California. And during the pandemic, my husband and I both take care of our mothers, meaning we check on them every day, we call, things like they're elderly. But during this past couple of years, they've deteriorated mentally as they aged. So our involvement has been much more, substantially more inclusive and more work. It's like a part-time job. And recently, just this year, or this academic year alone, we've had to you know, start making plans with our siblings about what are those next steps going to be when you transition caretaking responsibilities from independence to dependence. So that's been really huge for us on how do we navigate these traumatic events that are in family, then, and how do I pursue this distance away from them. So that means I have to put systems in place. Well, you can't, you know, nothing's perfect. Life is not perfect. It's got a bunch of hills and nooks and crannies and stuff that can be emotionally and physically involving. and have lasting psychological effects as well on myself, on my husband. And I hate to use the word burden because it's not, it's a responsibility that I embrace. I love my mother. My mother took care of me. I take care of her. And so my husband and I both are you know, synchronous in that thought and motivation. How that translates with university is that it can be nerve-wracking, completely nerve-wracking. And I understand with Eliana, where you're in school, you're present, you may be present while you're doing homework, but half your brain is wherever is going on in your life, outside your life. It is there, and it can be very draining. So I always find that I have to find spaces in between everyone else that is just for me. So I get up in the morning, 1 hour. I've taken one of my professors' advice, and every morning I dedicate that to myself. I'm very selfish with that time, and I learned to use that word liberally. I think that's been beneficial. I know I feel a lot different since I myself devoting more time between meditation and prayer. And I think that's also helped me to find some inner peace. And you know, other people may find, you know, exercising, they may find that in the evening before they go to bed, they have some ritual. So finding, and I like to use the word ritual and selfish because they're terms that I know I was taught not to put that in my life because it's not family orientated, or it's not something that is, it's like a negative vocabulary word. And you know, I think that nowadays that something needs to be demystified, that it can be very effective on how you navigate stress, and how a lot of people, it prohibits healing physically if you're sick or you're dealing with chronic illness. So, you know, having these spaces that are selfish, ritualistic, are that are there just for me is very important to have.
Restate the question again. You go, Eliana. That's what I heard.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I wanted to, like, she could, you know, give us some points on the question again to guide us, give better responses.
Thank you so much. Yeah, the question was about, you know, what does it mean to you to have this inclusive excellency fellowship during a time that we are challenged by many, many things that are not necessarily good things, like the pandemic, the fires, war, you know, discrimination that is so blatant, inflation, all these horrible things that are hitting us right now. What does it mean to have that fellowship? And how do you translate that fellowship into research that will create change for our communities, right?
Okay, like I mentioned earlier, there is a lot ongoing in my country right now. The civil war is there, and of course the pandemic is there. Cameroon is not left out. So you have people who are displaced, who are bunched up together in homes for security's sake. There is the pandemic out there. There's just so much that is ongoing. And it actually affects me because all my family is over there. Just a couple of others are out of the danger zone. So this fellowship means so much to me on many grounds. Number one, my research interest is centered around looking at this particular civil war. There is quite a wave of movement around it. How is this movement trying to articulate the issues of the Anglophone people? How are they doing it? What kind of protest tactics are they deploying to talk about this Anglophone issues in Cameroon? And so I kind of like, this fellowship kind of like gives me time to, you know, follow these events and try to see how I can research and write about this. And then the second bit about it is a very valuable opportunity for me to kind of like settle in the program, because there's really a lot that is going on, enough to discourage somebody not to even think about school or to think about grad school right now, because grad school entails a lot. And if you don't have the peace of mind that you need, it's going to really be difficult for you to sail through. So I felt like giving me this fellowship at this time is like, giving me the opportunity to settle into the program, have some time to put a couple of things together before probably I continue with the program. So to me, I feel like it's a great opportunity for me. And one thing that the scholarship has done for me is it kind of like also gives me some motivation to mentor other people and to grant other people the opportunities. Like, for example, there's a lot of Anglophone children from and outside of my community that are displaced right now. They don't even know where their parents are. I have been able, with the time that the fellowship has given me, I'm not teaching like my friends do, bring these children together. And some of them I've had to, send them to safer regions and let them do some form of community school so they don't get out of touch with education. Some of them are really too young. It's been ongoing now for 5 years. Nobody knows when it's going to end. So there is going to be that gap in education. If we are not careful, maybe by the time it ends, some of them that are like 10, 11, 12, 13 years will be 20 something years. So it'll be difficult getting them back to school. So this fellowship has kind of like also given me the opportunity, the time to organize, to get people on the ground, to put together groups of children and make sure they gain some community education. Those that were about writing some exams that they need to write that they can't miss, I had to move them over to the Francophone zone of Cameroon, where there is relative peace. And, to be honest, what the fellowship gives me, I cannot share it with them. It's quite difficult, but that's the reality. I can't just, have fun, sleep, and feel good when a part of me is out there suffering. So I kind of like right now I'm sponsoring a couple of children, mentoring them, and making sure that I am not only gaining the education, but they also are sharing in the goodness that comes with this fellowship.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, so like I say, this fellowship, so I talked, I'm just thankful to get this first and foremost, right? This is great. I came into a fully funded program, but I deferred my fellowship to my second year. I know Tevin's in cognitive psych and Sabrina's in IH. I don't know if y'all department's the same, but we have a second year thesis we have to do, right? So I moved it over to that, and I TA'd this first year, right? And it's a lot, right? So it's really going to allow me to be able to complete my second year thesis, which I'm working on a data set that looks at educational attainment between high schools in California, particularly continuation high schools, right? So I'll be able to do that and just really focus my time on networking. I know within the fellowship, I think there's some grant money to, there's some money to travel to present and whatnot. So I'll have some work, some rudimentary work starting up with my data set. So I'll be able to go to one of these conferences, PSA, one of the sociological conferences or education conference and whatnot. So yeah, overall, it's just a great thing to be able to get this for looking at my prior scholarship and the promise I have as a future Black scholar in academia.
I would say for me, echoing what Jared said, the same, very thankful for the fellowship. And I think for me, it also what it means is just a reflection, I feel like, to a degree, from the mentorship that I have had, and that it's been successful in helping me navigate this grad school environment. And it's also motivating to try and do the same for the people that come after me. So trying to get through this program in order so that I can also take the information that I've learned along the way and help give that to the next kind of generation who are in similar positions as me, and help it so they don't have to have the same questions that I have now, that I can answer those questions for them. So.
Thank you. Destina.
Thank you all for sharing your experiences of making it in graduate school and what the fellowship has done in your lives, and the advice that you would give to undergraduate students that are also considering graduate school. And also just sharing your stories. I feel like I learned a lot from each of you. Just hearing what you have to say has been really insightful for me. The last thing that I wanted to ask is there anything else that you would like to share with us or in the podcast or for graduate students, other graduate students, future graduate students, anything that comes to mind at this moment?
I mean, just speaking to UC Merced is cool. I mean, there's it's a newer university. I think the newest university in California. There's a lot of interdisciplinary work, cross department work. The environment's real chill. A lot of young scholars here, like as far as faculty and department goes. So that's really cool. Like kind of connect like that. I just think it's a real cool vibe here. And if you're thinking about coming, you should come.
And I would just add that knowledge is power. I mean, considering grad school, to me, it's important. You can make it, others are making it, and others will still make it. Don't hesitate if that is what you feel like you need to do.
And don't worry about whether or not you are accepted in and outside your family group or within friends, your personal sphere, because you are exactly where you're supposed to be. And if you're having thoughts and considerations of furthering your education, no matter when you're going to further your education, sooner is better than later. And that if you're concerned, put one step in front of the other, because doors always open. And at UC Merced, this institution opened up doors that I never would have imagined for myself, both with the fellowship. Whoever heard of being paid to go to school? I never heard of that. And whoever heard of not having to pay for tuition, right? Never heard of that. Somebody bought my books for me. I'm like, what? So having this freedom of not having to worry financially is such a huge consideration for going for university. However, I made the decision to attend university, accepted prior to receiving notification of this fellowship. So what I'm saying is put one foot in front of the other. When you make that choice, these other doors will open up for you. These avenues open up. And at UC Merced, it has been very fruitful.
Hold on, who paid for your book, Sabrina? What network you got that I ain't get yet? Hold on. You in on this too, Tevin?
That's a side conversation there.
All right, cool. All right.
And
Well,
last thing I would say is, echoing everyone else's, is I'm just thankful for UC Merced for this fellowship, and I think it kind of reflects that UC Merced is moving in a great direction to have a fellowship that focuses on Black scholars and getting more people like us to come to the university and making it very motivating.
And lastly, all of us have a pigment color in our skin that defines us within society in the United States as being labeled as other. And not only that, this degree of otherness that Black society has continued to suppress, continues to do that today and historically. So for us to have this representation of Black scholarship being congratulated, awarded financial resources, being supported, and to be included is something that, for me, looking back in all these decades, there was 30 years between me in high school and then going to college. So for me to see and be a part of this is just historical for me, because being a woman, being a Black woman, being a Hispanic woman, it didn't matter. I was other, and then other, as you kept going down with everything, every label. I was continuing to be suppressed and suppressed. So this scholarship, this fellowship is huge. And I know that I feel supported, motivated, and encouraged to rise above what society has over those decades put me at, suppressed me at. So this has been space that the university has provided that's fundamentally life-changing for myself and for people who are around me, who witness, who may hear this podcast, who may be in class with me. We're the examples. And so I'm very proud to be a part of this. I'm proud to be a part of this cohort. And
Absolutely. Thank you, all of you, Jared, Ileana, Tevin, Sabrina, Christina. Thank you so much for creating this safer space at UC Merced, so we can have enlightened conversations about grad school. We really appreciate it. We congratulate you. We're proud of your achievements, and I'm excited to read your research in a few years and learn more about the efforts that you are going to help us diversify the diversified academia, right? So I definitely want to make sure you know the grad student association is your space, your safer space, and the podcasts are open for any grad student who is wanting to have these conversations. So I'm very thank you, and I'm very honored and humbled to hear your stories today. And I wish you the best in the next few years. This is going to be a very unique experience in your lives, and so I'm excited for you and for your futures. And I'm also, like you, thankful for having these opportunities, because without them, right, I'm also a recipient of the Cota Robles Fellowship. Without them, I probably would not be here today talking to you. So I'm grateful, and I'm grateful for being part of this community with you all. So thank you so much. Christina?
Yeah, thank you all for having me here. I'm excited to be part of this and to help Violet out with this project that GSA is working on. And just to hear what you all have to say, I really appreciate your time and the vulnerability and your experiences that help shape where you are in your academic career and how it made you the person you are today. I really do appreciate this time that you're all giving to us to talk about this. And I am really excited to advertise it for you all on our social media and share it so other students can hear this as well. Because I feel like there's other students at UC Merced that could probably relate or resonate to what you've shared with us today. So again, thank you so much for giving us your time. It's really valuable and I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you all.